You have a close friend who often comes to your house to eat. Chat with your family and you consider him as your blood relative. So familiar that no one in the family is aware that he could be your son's friend. Someone who works on the farm together. Even helped you rebuild the roof after a storm in the countryside. Neighborhood relationships are as strong as a knotted rope. Who would suspect anyone? But sometimes, right after a warm meal, there are terrifying secrets hidden. Can you imagine eating together every day, laughing together, while in the garden, behind you, is the body of your niece decomposing day by day? Today's story will make you suffocate because of the coldness of a murderer with that familiar face. If you find it interesting, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends and subscribe to the Radio Reportage channel so you don't miss any scary but valuable stories. A warning for Ia Bang Commune, Chu Bo Rong District. Jia Lai on a chilly December morning. Dew still lingers on the green coffee shoots. The dry sound of hoeing echoes in the backyard of an old wooden house. Mr. Hong, over 70 years old, with tanned skin, hunched back, and white hair like a kitchen stove, stood on the porch, watching the two workers who were digging a new well. The old well had dried up since last year's dry season. If Tui was still alive, she would have helped him scoop up buckets of water. He mumbled, his voice choked up, then turned away to hide his red eyes. It had been more than 2 months since Tui and his beloved nieces suddenly disappeared without a trace. The girl was in 9th grade, obedient, studious, and polite. Everyone in the village loved the day she went to extra classes and didn't come home. The whole family went crazy. Did you hear what anyone said? Mr. Lam, Mr. Hong's son, asked with a bewildered and tired look. No, my God, there's no stranger in this village who wouldn't recognize her. He gritted his teeth and stared out at the fence behind the house as if searching for a familiar figure. The whole village was in a frenzy to search. The commune police also searched the coffee plantations and dry streams, even bringing in sniffer dogs. But for more than 60 days there was not a single clue. Not a piece of cloth. Not a single sandal, as if it had disappeared from this world. And then on that seemingly normal morning, as the hoe strokes kept digging deeper, the dry ground was filled with a scream. Oh my God, what is this? Like human bones. Mr. Hong was stunned. His steps stopped as if nailed to the brick floor. His hands trembled as he leaned against the house pillar. His chest tightening with each contraction. The well digger stepped back and gasped. Uncle, there is a piece of white cloth with hair underneath. Like a school uniform skirt. Mr. Hong heard it and felt like he had a stroke. His eyes opened wide, his face pale. He didn't need anyone to say anything more. His old heart had sensed something no one dared to think of. No, it can't be. Tui. His voice choked in his throat and he collapsed on the steps. Salty tears soaked into every wrinkle and crack of time. A piece of cloth embroidered with Tui's name was mixed in the ground. The stench rose from the cold ground, and the most terrifying thing was that only a few steps away from the house, the feet of the person who buried Tui still lived with them. Maybe an acquaintance, even still sat eating with him. Every day, the sound of a motorbike revving and then turning off in front of Mr. Hong's gate not long after. Or a commune police officer and an investigator from Chu Bo Rong District quickly walked into the yard, carrying a camera, gloves and a crime scene investigation kit. Everyone was tense as a bowstring, their eyes scanning here and there as if trying to catch the rotten smell that was seeping into every breath. This, back, is where the workers dug up the bones? An officer asked. Mr. Hong did not answer. He stood like a stone statue next to the coffee tree, his face as white as paper. His eyes were fixed on the deep hole that was emitting a strong smell of death. His son, Mr. Lam, stood next to him, trembling, his hands tightly gripping the fence as if trying to keep himself from collapsing. Another officer gently stepped into the hole, brushing away the dirt while muttering, "There's hair, there's clothes. Oh my God, this skirt looked like a middle school uniform." No one said anything, only the clicking sound of cameras taking pictures of the scene mixed with the sound of flies swarming with the smell of decomposing bodies. White sheets were spread out right next to the hole. Each layer of soil that was turned over revealed a truth: human hands, human feet, and finally a face that had been deformed by time and insects. But no matter how much the flesh melted, the small handkerchief embroidered with Tui's name still had its roots. The red thread still stood out among the mud. The evidence was undeniable. Tui's mother, Enan, had just returned from the market and saw the crowd. So she rushed in. Before she could understand what was happening, she collapsed when she saw the scene before her. Screaming, hands holding her head, hair disheveled. Oh my God. No, not my child, not my Twee. Heart-rending cries. Mr. Hong's coughing and then slumping down on the steps. All the sounds seemed to be sucked into the terrifying void in the middle of the garden where just last night Mr. Hong had sat smoking and telling stories of the past to his grandchild. He thought he was still alive somewhere out there with signs of strangulation. The forensic doctor's voice was soft but loud enough for Mr. Hong to hear. There were no signs of abuse. Someone else continued to bury the body quickly without digging deep, using soil to temporarily cover it, chilling his spine. Mr. Hong's eyes were filled with tears. His cloudy eyes gradually turned red. Each sentence, each word of the forensic officer was like hundreds of needles stabbing into his suffocating heart. So the girl was killed right in her own house. Right here, he repeated like a machine. Someone asked softly, was there anyone strange in the house at that time? Mr. Lam was bewildered and shook. The sound was not from old age but from hatred in the ground. The body of a child was buried like trash on the ground. A demon still had the face of a familiar person and was still hiding somewhere. Twee's small study room was located in the corner of the simple but neat wooden house. The desk still had the ink marks of a ballpoint pen not yet dry on the last page. Half of the practice test was unfinished and the wooden chair where she used to sit was covered with a thin layer of dust. The police thoroughly searched every corner, every drawer. No one dared to touch Twee's belongings before, because of the hope and belief that the child was still somewhere there. She would return and lovingly blame her mother for messing up her books.is head. Not only were they close friends, but they were all familiar. Very familiar. Trust, eat dinner and chat every night. But that person did it. Took away his obedient granddaughter. And what was more terrible was that for the past 2 months, the murderer still came to this house. Still sat on the mat to eat dinner every night. Still smiled. Still asked if there was any news. The forensic doctor covered the body with a white cloth. The whole garden was silent. Only the sound of the wind whistling through the leaves and the grinding of Mr. Hong's teeth. The sound was not from old age but from hatred in the ground. The body of a child was buried like trash on the ground. A demon still had the face of a familiar person and was still hiding somewhere. Twee's small study room was located in the corner of the simple but neat wooden house. The desk still had the ink marks of a ballpoint pen not yet dry on the last page. Half of the practice test was unfinished and the wooden chair where she used to sit was covered with a thin layer of dust. The police thoroughly searched every corner, every drawer. No one dared to touch Twee's belongings before, because of the hope and belief that the child was still somewhere there. She would return and lovingly blame her mother for messing up her books. But today, when the girl's body was just pulled up from the half-dug well in the backyard, everything suddenly became different. The young soldiers called out softly, "Brother, there's something strange under your desk drawer." The investigating police bent down and used a knife to gently separate the thin layer of wood. A small notebook with faded beer was pulled out. The words were written on it. The first page was Twee's slanted handwriting. Her child's diary. Only I know that the first lines are innocent everyday stories. Stories about friends. Stories about teachers praising. Stories about mom cooking my favorite dishes. But the further I turn, the more crooked and distorted the handwriting becomes. As if trembling, as if scared. Uncle Than looks at me strangely. Today he came into the house when no one was talking, wanting to talk privately. I was afraid. I locked the door but he just stood outside looking for a long time. I told my mother but she said Uncle Than was a relative. I think too much. I will tell you. I will not be silent anymore. The last page was a scribbled line, hastily written in red ink. If anything happens to me, it is because of Uncle Than. The space in the room suddenly became dense. The police looked at each other. No one said anything. Tan Than appeared for the first time like a sharp knife cutting through the fog of the Than case. Lam's best friend, who still came to the house every day to eat and drink like a family member, who had helped look for him. Twee had comforted Mr. Hong with a sad and pitiful voice. The girl must have been lured somewhere. Lam was called into the room to talk. Hearing Than's name, he suddenly remembered Than. He was very close to your family. Childhood friend. How could he remember if Than was home the night Twee went missing? Lam blinked and stammered. She had dinner with the family and then told him to go home. But now I don't remember clearly when she left. What time did he bow to meet her? His voice much weaker. Another officer brought Than's phone out to restore the location data. The night Thuy went missing, his phone appeared in the vegetable garden at 8:17 p.m. matching the time Thuy was confirmed dead when comparing the camera of the gas station near her house. That same night, a blurry image appeared. A man wearing a hat led his bike behind the house. Mr. Hong, walking like Vu Than, her mother, Ms. Enan, sat in the outer room, covering her face and crying. The girl had told me something that I thought she imagined. Oh my God, I killed my child with blind trust. Mr. Hong stopped crying. His eyes were sunken, red but dry as ashes. He repeated a sentence over and over again like an echo from the spirit world. He ate with me, sat across from the little girl, and then buried her body behind the house. No one dared to interrupt him because everyone felt a shiver of fear because the devil was real and he disguised himself as a relative, a friend, and then murdered a little girl in the dark of night, right in the place that should have been the safest place in her life. At night at the Chu Bo District Police Headquarters, the air was thick as if a storm was about to break out. The man named Than sat on a chair, his arms crossed over his chest, his face calm to the point of being suspicious. He wore a wrinkled checkered shirt, his eyes darting between the three investigators as if he was playing a role that was all too familiar to him. Do you remember where you were on the evening of October 14th? Oh, I wasn't sure if I was home, but I went to Lam's house for a bit and then went home. His voice was even and a little tired as if he was being disturbed. But his eyes avoided, not daring to look directly at anyone. An officer pulled out his phone, which was his confiscated during the investigation, and slowly showed the image from the gas station's camera. So who is this person? The policeman's voice was as sharp as a knife. He glanced over, a twitch at the corner of his lips, and remained silent. It was 8:17 p.m. His phone was also in Mr. Hong's garden. And here another officer placed Thuy's diary on the table, which was evidence that the child was wary of him. She knew that if anything happened to her, it would be his fault. Than laughed dryly, starting to sweat like a child. They wrote nonsense that I was a relative, and I went to look for him. The first few days, you were a relative. The officer's voice suddenly dropped like a thunderclap in the gloomy sky. A relative who looked after a growing child. A relative who appeared at the exact moment the child went missing. A relative who buried the body right under the vegetable garden well. The last sentence made Than jump. His chin trembled. He began to lose his composure. No. But I didn't kill her. I just wanted to talk to her. To scare her a little. She screamed. I was afraid someone would hear. I accidentally did it. He was talking while panting and slapping his face, his eyes bulging as if they were about to explode. He shouted, "That girl. She saw me stealing money. She threatened to tell her father. Me. I was so scared. I just intended to cover his mouth. But who would have thought he was really dead?" The room fell silent, a terrifying silence like a coffin that had just been closed. No one looked at him with the eyes of someone interrogating a criminal anymore, but as if they were facing a stranger, whose face had been disguised as a human for so many years after killing the child. "What did you do?" the police continued to ask, their voice cold. "It was raining. I didn't dare take the body far from me. I took the old shovel from the backyard, dug a hole near the old well for him, then went home as if nothing had happened and continued to go to the house to eat." He didn't answer. He bowed his head, his whole body curled up like a soulless corpse that night. Mr. Hong did not sleep. He sat by his nephew's newly set up altar. Holding a burning incense burner on the altar was a photo of Thuy wearing her elementary school graduation cap. Her smile was bright, innocent and carefree like any child who had never known the dark side of life. Outside, the rain was falling lightly in Mr. Saegiong Taekwon's heart. "Hello, Hai Thang." I still look at his face. "Do you know, Thuy sits where you usually sit to eat." Once lost a whole life of 2 months and 60 days. Nearly 200 meals in each of those meals. Than still sat there leisurely, calmly, sometimes even contributed the bowl you used to eat. He made me laugh. I acted like nothing happened. I trusted him. I trusted him like I trusted my own flesh and blood. He put his face down on the table, crying silently. Somewhere in the land, perhaps Thuy still had not passed away. She never thought that the person who killed her would be the uncle who gave her candy. who carried her across the dry stream when she was little as for Mr. Hong. The man who worked hard all his life. Never blamed anyone. Now there is only hatred carved into the heart of the person who sent him. He gave Mr. Hong a piece of meat, asked Ms. Enon a few random questions, and teased Twee's cousin Tham with a few fake laughs. No one knew that right under the vegetable garden, Twee's corpse was decomposing every day. No one expected that the devil was not far away. It was the one who still poured water to invite guests and still betrayed Mr. Hong. The kitchen staff still looked sorry every morning. The poor child must have been taken away by a bad person. When Mr. Lam knew that the murderer was himself, he punched and broke the living room mirror, blood flowing without a trace, with the humiliation boiling in his cage, his big chest treating you like flesh and blood. You killed my child, and you still dare to come and eat every meal in the house. I have become it, sitting in the interrogation room, head bowed, hands shaking, but not because of regret but because of fear of the eyes of those who once loved him like family. Looking at him like a rabid dog with the first night's disease. Mr. Hong recounted, she also helped me burn incense, praying and asking me if I needed a reward for anyone who found the family. She said maybe the child was kidnapped so I could go to the police station. Her face was as calm as if nothing had happened. Sister Enon quietly used a towel to wipe away the bloodstains on Twee's uniform that was found in the well. The dark mark was a knife that had been stabbed straight into her mother's heart. She only remembered one night. About 2 weeks after Twee went missing, Fan came to her house and brought out a tray of food. He asked, "Are you cooking sour soup today?" When Twee was alive, she loved this dish very much. When he was alive, just those 3 words still twisted like a poisonous omen. He had killed, buried, and concealed the child, but he still had the heart to mention the child with a sarcastic tone. As soon as he was arrested, the whole village was in chaos. The news spread like wildfire in the dry season. The elderly were pensive, the children were absent-minded and did not dare to go out to the playground. No one believed that the person who had taken the children to school, who had participated in weeding during the meeting, was such a cold-blooded person. Mr. Hong sat in front of the people, smoking continuously, the white smoke curling up and disappearing in the wind. Even bad people know fear. Now it sits in front of me with its heart filled with corpses. He said, as if he was talking to Twee, the grandchild who had lain in his arms during the nights of power outages. I used to listen to him tell fairy tales, kiss him on the cheek after every meal and then babble, "Grandpa, I will study well and grow up to be a doctor to inject you to get well." Now, who will inject this pain to heal you? Why Bang Village is no longer as peaceful as before, since the day he discovered his neighbor's body passing by his house. Mr. Hong has been silently bowing his head. Some people no longer dare to look at that house. Others quietly leave a few bundles of incense in front of the gate without a message. Without a card, just a red look. Evil does not always have fangs and claws. Evil, sometimes just wearing a helmet, a shirt, knocking on the door and saying hello, auntie, then sitting at the dinner table, smiling and picking up a piece of fried egg, looking at my niece with the eyes of a predator. That is the devil, a devil who can speak human language. Duke County Detention Camp. One misty morning in a simple interrogation room with 4 mottled walls, damp spots and the yellow heat lamp shining down. Fan sat with his head bowed, his hands cuffed in front of his stomach, breathing softly like a hunted animal. At the end of the road, his face was gaunt, his cheekbones sunken, his eyes dark with no trace of the familiar, family-like man who had eaten in Mr. Hong's kitchen for the past 2 months. Inside the human shell, there was now only the hollowness of a sinner with the soul of a field robber. I didn't intend to kill him. His voice broke like a piece of pottery falling on a cold stone floor. He caught me, rummaging through Mr. Hong's wallet. He threatened Met, saying he would tell his father. I just wanted to scare him, but the girl screamed. She resisted me. I strangled her and then she stopped. He covered his face with his hands. His sobs were lost in the room. An old investigator looked at him with contempt. He didn't intend to write, but he dug a hole to bury the body, covered it with dirt, wiped away all traces, and then came to eat. He still helped light incense while eating. If that's not cold-blooded, then what is? Fan was silent. Then suddenly he screamed like a madman. I couldn't sleep. Every night I saw him. He stood at the end of the bed, his hair disheveled, His eyes wide open. He looked at me without saying anything. Without blaming me. Just looking. I wanted to surrender, but I was afraid. Afraid not of the law, not of the police, but of the face of the child he had pretended to love. Now following him in his sleep. In every blink of an eye. In every broken dream in the detention room. Fan didn't eat, nor did he talk to anyone. Every night he asked to light incense again. Heaven and earth, he muttered. Forgive me, don't look at me anymore. His fellow prisoners in the camp said. Every night I heard him cry like a beaten dog at the same time. At the old wooden house in Ia Bang commune, Mr. Hong was gathering his clothes and preparing to leave the land where he had been attached for more than half his life. I don't dare to live here anymore. This land is very cold. He said cold, not because of the wind in the forest but because this is the place where his niece was killed and buried right behind the house without him knowing. Since the day she received her daughter's body, Musin Han's hair had turned noticeably grey. Every night, she prepared a full meal. And the four of them still left bowls and chopsticks for Tui even though the child was now just a handful of ashes neatly placed in a dark red wooden box. Mom cooked sour soup, my favorite dish, she mumbled as if talking to an invisible person. Mr. Lam did not say anything anymore, since he knew that the murderer was his best friend. He became taciturn and rarely interacted with anyone. That once strong man is now like dry bark, drained of sap, hollow and broken. Fan will be brought to court for murder and desecration of a corpse. The maximum sentence is death. But will death be enough to wash away his crimes, or is it just a release for someone who has nothing left to lose? Only Mr. Hong clearly understands that murder is a crime. But he lives pretending to love the victim for 2 months after killing him. That is something that is no longer called human. In the first instance trial in Jia Lai, Fan bowed his head for a while, only looking up once. When Mr. Hong entered the room, his old face was filled with great pain. No longer anger, no longer hatred, but the look of someone who had just buried a child. He had just buried his faith in humanity. I don't want him to die. I just want him to dream of my grandchild every night so he knows what it's like to be tormented. Those were the last words Mr. Hong said in court, then quietly turned away, not even looking at the person who used to laugh and talk at the family dinner table. The court sentenced him to death. Behind that sentence was a broken family, a child who never grew up, and a community that forever bears the most painful and unhealed scar. The one who did all of that was not a stranger but someone who was once called a relative. The case in Ia Bang commune ended with a death sentence but opened another fear. The devil in disguise, who may not live in the deep forest but live next to us in our daily meals. The lesson of awakening is not in blood or tears. It lies in the vigilance. In listening to the voices of children. In believing that no one is too familiar to become a monster. Ask your child about going to school today. Pay attention to the eyes of your relatives when they look at your child. Don't take lightly the random words of a child because sometimes their life hangs on a sentence that adults ignore. If you find this story meaningful, please like the video, share it with your relatives and friends, and subscribe to the Radio Report channel so you don't miss out on stories of life that are angry but have awakening value. Radio Reportage, where the darkness is told with the coldest truth.